If violence turns subject into object, then is it only through violence that one can return to a subject position? Hello, my lovely Venusians. It's Venus, and today we are talking about Honey by Imani Thompson. Honey asks this question and asks the reader to ponder. What does liberation look like? What does justice look like? What does it really look like? So many of these word girl books have a third act dreamlike sequence or drug-induced spiral or mental health crisis that lead to a shocking act. But have you ever seen a murder spree built on the basis of an academic paper? That's not to say that drugs and mental health don't play a role in this story, but it's structured such that the academic nature is definitely at the forefront. It's feminine rage with so much substance. Honey is a horror thriller novel that utilizes real-life critical framework theory to kind of justify a Black woman's murder spree. Many books that I've read have vaguely or thinly implied feminist messages, but I've never read something that's explored so masterfully in both the academic and fictional sense. The works of Wilderson, Saidiya Hartman, and Paul Gilroy are invoked as primary sources on why our main character Yrsa comes to believe that violence is necessary, is absolutely required to achieve any semblance of personal and racial autonomy. Yrsa's research is on the topic of Afropessimism. This is a term that was coined by Frank B. Wilderson III. This theory is a framework that describes the ongoing effects of racism, colonialism, and the historical processes of enslavement and their impact on structural conditions, as well as the personal, subjective, and lived experience and embodied reality of Black people. When I started this book, I immediately started researching and went down the rabbit hole into Afropessimism. I felt very overwhelmed. A general qualm that I have with theory is that it has the goal of addressing the experiences and day-to-day life of the common man, but it's often framed in ways that are too academic for non-scholars to understand. You want to mobilize, but you situate the information to intellectuals when in fact it's something that needs to be easily disseminatable from top to bottom. That's part of why I really love this book. It gives us a baseline for this framework and also teaches us about both its strengths and some of its faults in this fictional world. I know that most everyone who picks up this book, especially based off of the reviews that I've read so far, are going to be introduced to Afropessimism for the very first time. I'm going to try my best to relay this information in a way that's digestible, but also with the caveat that I am not a scholar, I am not an intellectual, I am someone who's also just exploring this world, so please know that there is no way that I can ensure that I'm 100% representing Afropessimism in the way that it's meant to be understood. Wilderson asserts that Blackness is fundamentally excluded from humanity, that anti-Black violence as well as structural enslavement are permanent and unresolvable fixtures of the world. It's a lens of interpretation that accounts for civil society's dependence on anti-Black violence, a regime of violence that positions Black people as internal enemies of civil society. So there's this idea of social death, that slavery permanently stripped Black people of personhood, reducing us to structural objects, and that despite emancipation, this has not been reversed. Unlike other systems of oppression, such as class or gender, they argue that anti-Blackness is an irrefutable flaw of how society functions, and that it cannot be reformed. The theory is tough to swallow, and it also comes with opposition. From what I've seen from my very preliminary research, there seems to be two main reasons that people have opposition to the ideas asserted by Afropessimism. Angela Davis, when asked about Afropessimism, says that she believes that it promotes tribalism, that it's unhelpful and dismissive of intersectionality.
But I want to use this opportunity to say something about the way in which anti-Blackness has traveled. And I'm not sure whether here in Germany you use the term anti-Blackness. And I know that there is work that it does, but I'm very careful about the implications in this category, anti-Blackness, implications that somehow Black people constitute the most important group subject to racism, and that and that now anti-Blackness is used as a way to be deeply critical of people of color. So it's, you've heard the term people of color, anti-Blackness in people of color communities. And of course, there's racism. There's racism everywhere.
It makes the world go round.
Black people are subject to racism and have not been immune to the ideological assaults on other people of color. So I am really careful about assumptions that, somehow Black people are the primary, they're the primary victims. There's a lot of discussion about pain and injury, which of course are very important, but I think that sometimes it serves as a barrier to developing solidarity, to developing the kind of hyper-empathy that we were talking about. And if from where I stand, the importance of Black people in the Americas resides precisely in the fact that there has been an ongoing freedom struggle for centuries and centuries. And this is more about freedom than it is about Blackness, because there are also Black people who are participating in the oppressive apparatus. And I don't want to forget that.
I have just a question. What do you think about Afropessimism? I really want you to say something.
This was my way of speaking about Afropessimism.
That's what I thought. Good. Okay, I got a good mark. That's what I thought. Good. Yeah, I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, in many places in Europe, I've noticed that these ideas are traveling so rapidly.
Started in France.
And in France, in the Netherlands. And I think it's linked to a kind of Black nationalism that that always appears to be that to which Black movements defer. There's a kind of capitulation in front of Black nationalism. It keeps coming back. I mean, we struggled against it in the 60s, but it just keeps coming back. Whenever we speak about Black movements, somehow their nationalism is contours. And that's another problem I have with the nation state and nationalism, the way in which it does its ideological work through those of us who think that we are contesting the state.
Yes.
So again, the first of two faults that people find, that the theory serves to undercut intersectionality and is detrimental to the kind of solidarity that we need. And the other reason, which is more closely aligned to our main character Yrsa's belief, it's bleak. What do you want us to do with this information? As Yrsa is working on her thesis, she regularly consults with her advisor, and they have these kinds of conversations. So talk to me more about this here. You've quoted Wilderson saying racism will only end with the end of the world. In response, you write, this approach levels a degree of pessimism that makes any attempt at change futile. When death is the only escape, missions of progress become at once suicidal and immaterial. And so, in attempting their freedom, the person of color enacts their own social death. White entrapment is complete. So the advisor says, give me the alternative then, of racism ending without the world ending. To which Yrsa responds, it's not that I disagree with him on that level. I think he's probably right that only an apocalypse would bring about the end of racism. Sexism too, and capitalism. However, being so nihilistic about your liberation, so demanding, it's not helpful for the day-to-day. Tonight, I'm gonna go home and watch Sex and the City. I'm not picking cotton, And what does Wilderson want me to do? Lie there, watch Carrie Bradshaw buy shoes, and think that the only way I can liberate myself is to die? Come off it. The advisor then says, can you unpack what you mean when you say white entrapment is complete? To which Yrsa responds, yes. So Afropessimism says that liberation will never be found in today's structures. There's no democracy in democracy, no justice in the justice system. I think people have known that for a long time, but unless you do want to bring about all-out revolutionary war, where are people meant to go? Again, if you have nowhere to turn but death, then you live your life in bondage to your color, and for sure, emancipation will continue to be a myth. So Yrsa obviously finds fault within her area of research, and then suddenly it provides reprieve for her. Let's talk about what's going on at the start of the book. Our main character, Yrsa, despite having a dry, cynical view of the world and internal monologue, is able to maintain friends and is also kind of an enjoyable character to follow. The book employs that dry, crass, British sense of humor that I know is not for everyone. Yrsa learns that one of her friends and fellow grad students, Nina, has been having an affair with her professor, who is also her advisor for her research. They've been working on this research together and even travel out of the country. Now, this professor tells her that he's doing her a solid, that it would be better if he left her name off of the research, because then his wife would know that they went out of the country together, that they were traveling together, and he definitely plans on leaving his wife, but like it would just create a lot of drama, and we don't want drama because I love you so much. Nina trusts his intentions and his supposed love for her and lets him take credit for all of her hard work. Unsurprisingly, he leaves her and tells her, "Ugh, I just can't leave my family." Yrsa is already mad hearing this story, and then Nina's basically saying that this whole situation has kind of just put her off and she wants to put her research and her schooling aside. And this, of course, makes Yrsa even more mad. Just by chance, Yrsa ends up in a small group conversation with this professor, and he steps away, I think, to like take a phone call, and he leaves his drink unattended. She sees a bee on the edge of his drink and like flicks it in. She's mostly thinking, yeah, I can't really like cuss him out right now, but at the very least, if he gets stung, like he's gonna get stung on his tongue or his mouth, and it'll be kind of funny. Tiny paybacks, you know? What Yrsa didn't know is that this man was deathly allergic to bees and didn't even have his EpiPen with him. So she's alone with this man seizing on the ground, begging for help, trying to get her to call the police, and she decides to take her sweet time. Eventually, she does do the things that she's supposed to do, but at that point, it's too late, and she's okay with that. This sparks something within her. Usually apathetic, she feels alive. What if this is the direction that she needs to make sense of her thesis paper? What if this is what the world needs? The general idea of nonviolence versus resistance, of course, is the topic of many works. Academic, fiction, nonfiction, amongst revolutionaries and common man alike. And that's really what I keep coming back to since reading this book. If violence is the language that our society is already fluent in, are you supposed to speak back or be mute? I don't think the book gives a crystal clear answer because, like Afropessimism, it's supposed to be used as a framework, not prescriptive, but a jumping off point. And then it asks you, what are you going to do with that? I wanted to end with a dramatic reading of The Bees by Audre Lorde, which happens to be Yrsa's favorite poem, but I think I'm just going to put it in the description and really encourage you all to read this as you kind of close out this video, because it just was not giving, which is so funny because I used to be in speech and debate in high school, and I think for poetry, I went to state. And now I'm sitting here at 26, I'm like, I cannot read a poem in a way that anyone would want to listen to it. But it's really good, and it pairs very well with everything that's going on, so make sure you check out that in the description. I'm also going to have a link to the Angela Davis video. I'll also put in a link to a video of Wilderson kind of, I don't know if it was specifically to that Angela Davis video, but he kind of retorts back against that notion that Afropessimism, perpetuates anti-solidarity. So just check out the description for the show notes. If you have thoughts on Honey by Imani Thompson, if there's anything that you want to teach me about Afropessimism, because I have a lot to learn, or if in general you would just like to talk about books, then let's meet in the comments.